Alrighty. Welcome to the September 9th, 2021 meeting of the Minneapolis Transgender Equity Council. This meeting includes remote participation of members as authorized under Minnesota statutes, section 13D.021, due to the declared local health pandemic. The city will be recording and posting this meeting to the city's website and YouTube channel as a means of increasing public access and transparency. Board meetings are public and subject to the Minnesota open meeting law. I will now call this meeting to order and call the roll so that we may verify the presence of a quorum. And then Kenzie Weller.
Hello, here.
May Brooks.
Here.
Melissa Berner.
Here.
Nico Cruz.
Here.
Emma Gray.
Here.
Billy Couric.
Here.
Galen Mitchell.
Here.
Taryn Wood.
Here.
Destiny Zhang.
Here.
There are 8 members present. We have quorum. With that, we will proceed to our agenda, a copy of which was posted for public access to the city's legislative information management system, which is available at lims.minneapolismn.gov. And Kenzie, I will pass it over to you.
We need somebody to adopt the agenda.
I vote to adopt the agenda.
Seconded. I second that motion.
Great. And one more time quickly, voting Kenzie.
Accepting the minutes?
Oh, sorry. Yes, and accepting the minutes from, we should do together with accepting the minutes from the last meeting. Thank you.
Yes.
Perfect. So voting for adopting the agenda and the minutes from the last meeting. Kenzie.
Yes.
May.
Yep.
Melissa.
Yep.
Nico.
Yep.
Emma.
Yep.
Billy.
Yes.
Galen.
Yep.
Taryn.
Yes.
And Destiny.
Yes.
There are 8 in favor. There are 4 absent. There are none opposed. The motion passes. The agenda and minutes are adopted. Thank you all. And so I will give some quick updates, very quick updates on the TEC recommendations, and then pass it back to Kenzie for subcommittee updates, and particularly for you all voting to approve your policy recommendations for 2021. But the only recommendation updates I wanted to give, and the relevant document, as always, is linked in your agenda, is just that I had been keeping you all posted on where both the rent control charter amendment and the public safety charter amendment that you all had advocated for were at. In terms of rent control, there will be a charter amendment on the ballot that people can vote on that would, if the majority of voters say yes, allow the city council to design a rent control policy. There will not be a charter amendment that would create a community designed rent control policy. The mayor vetoed that one. So that one will not be on the ballot, but the city council designed rent control amendment will be on the ballot. And then the other charter amendment update, and this is the only other update I have on your recommendations, is that the charter amendment to replace the police department with a Department of Public Safety was approved to be on the November ballot. And the ballot language was finalized. The council members had written a similar amendment. They withdrew it. A judge then threw out the ballot language, and then council had an emergency meeting this past Tuesday, and the ballot language was refinalized. And so there is now once again ballot language. Malaysia, as a council aide, if I summarized any of that incorrectly, please jump in and correct me.
Yes, perfect, accurate.
Sweet, okay. But so those 2 charter amendments will both be on the November ballot. Does anyone have any questions on any of that? Sweet. In that case, Kenzie, I will pass it to you to move into subcommittee updates.
We didn't have a training subcommittee this last go around, did we? No quorum. So there
No,
are no
yeah.
updates.
But policy.
But policy. So let's do a quick report back and then we'll talk about our recs if anyone wants to from policy. I would do it, but I was not there.
I can try, if no one has them, to pull up minutes quick and summarize what I have from the last policy meeting. Oh, and as I am doing this, here is Hunta. So Hunta and interpreters, if you want to get each other pinned.
Okay, we're set. Go right ahead.
Sweet. Okay. I am pulling up the minutes from the last policy meeting to give a quick summary back on what folks discussed. Overall, most of the meeting was spent kind of going through the 2021 recommendations that you all are going to vote on, and kind of reworking it to have some like overall framing using the kind of vaguer recommendations, like things that were like, we support affordable housing without a clear direct policy ask next to it as an overall framing, and then trying to cut down your recommendations to just really concrete, like this can be tied to an ordinance or a specific action of a department type of asks. And to also add in an ask around increasing the trans equity budget to cover more of the cost of the summit, because the summit is primarily covered by the cost of tabling fees right now, and also to cover, kind of in an ideal world, a project where an intern would develop a like resource list of resources for trans and GNC residents. So I think those are the biggest edits that the policy subcommittee made at the last meeting. I'm curious if anyone from policy wants to speak any more to what is in those recommendations for anyone to know about before folks ask questions and you all take a vote on moving them forward.
I can go through really quick, kind of summarize. It's a very similar format to our recent recommendations in March. So we do have a housing section, but surprisingly, it's a lot smaller because a lot of things are moving forward. So we're still going to recommend that City Council adopt the tenant opportunity to purchase, and we're asking for more trans-specific housing and doing more work on the property owner training. And I'm seeing that track has some notes here of just about logistics. Then we have a community safety and healing section. The big bullet points there are just asking for funding to be moved from MPD towards any other resources. And let's see. Other notable points here. This is a big section, so I encourage everyone to kind of read. But I think they are all important. We have a training section, asking to increase the HR learning and development budget, asking HR to expand advertising strategies for gender inclusivity training, asking for more money to support more LGBTQ competency trainings, as well as adding a level up LGBTQ competency training for providers. Then we have a bathroom section. Unfortunately, still, let's see, we want to get some. Oh, we're trying to figure out how we can recommend all gender bathroom construction on new builds. And I know the language here is very specific because of public works things that I don't understand. And then last, we have our role of appointed boards, and that's just we'd like a list served so we can more efficiently communicate with other people. That's my summary. Sorry if that was not very graceful.
That was perfect. Thank you for that. Do folks have any questions on anything that's in the recommendations? Nothing is a silly question.
I have a question, Chuck. I know that we previously had a conversation about just sharing the recommendations with me, and I was just wondering if you were able to share with the council on what we were talking about, and if that was helpful. Is that something that you guys could consider, or etc.?
In terms of trying to get a sense of geographic representation of trans folks in the city, we are going to talk about that in just a minute.
Okay, that too, but just in the recommendations, just to provide more detail and specific examples, just because I didn't want y'all to give examples or y'all to give recommendation and then it's fleshed out by other people. So I was thinking of how things can be more concrete in a way of it's not up to other people's representation. It's what the ask is.
I appreciate that. I think the policy subcommittee and I got them about as detailed as we could figure out how to this year, which is more detailed than the draft you saw anyway, for sure. But yeah, would love to continue working with you on how in future years to get them even more so, because I think you're right, and there's places where we just don't have quite enough information. And if anyone on here has anything in there that they have things they'd want to see in more detail, please shout that out. We can still make those changes. Does anyone else have any questions?
If not, shall we vote?
You all can go for it. And the one thing I will say, there are one or two things in the recommendations, and you can still see them because I've left my comments flagged on them, where I'm waiting for a department to get back to me about a little more fleshed out language. So exactly what funding or support would be useful for increasing the scope of the mental health crisis response teams is one where your language just says more funding for right now, but we're trying to see if there's anything more specific. So knowing that the like co-chairs would be presenting them before the next TEC meeting. You all just kind of need to take a vote that's a like, we vote to have the co-chairs present these recommendations with the like, you know, few details that we're still planning on adding that are marked in the recommendations already. Since this is technically not a fully final document, but it's fine for you to vote on it in the format it exists. So that's a technicality. And if folks do feel good moving forward, that's just kind of, that is what I would recommend voting on logistically.
I will say too, we tried to be very specific in our asks. You know, so when we ask for things like increased funding is trying to provide a dollar amount. And I know TRAC has done a lot of research on, you know, what is the current budget for XYZ and what makes sense to ask for. So the numbers are not willy-nilly. So I will say that. Thank you to TRAC.
Yeah, definitely huge thanks to TRAC. This is Hunter.
Happy to help with the research. Glad I can. So yeah, if you all want to move forward with it, we need a motion from somebody.
I can do it. This is Hunter. I motion to move forward with it.
I second the motion. This is Emma.
Sweet. And I'm going to call roll quickly on moving forward with the co-chairs presenting these recommendations with the couple like last final changes that have been marked in the comments. Kenzie.
Yes.
Hunter. I got background noise from someone else, so I didn't actually hear Melissa voice Hunter's yes, so I just need that again.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry about that. May.
Yes.
Melissa.
Yes.
Nico.
Yes.
Emma.
Yes.
Billy. I mostly heard that over the dog, so we're good. Galen.
Yes.
Taryn.
Yes.
And Destiny.
Yeah.
There are 9 in favor, none opposed, and 3 absent. The motion passes, and Kenzie and Hunter will be presenting these recommendations on the 22nd, which, if you want to watch them present to council, please do. They killed it last time. They're going to be great again this time. We're going to have fewer tech issues this time. It's the real plan. Okay. I'm passing it to myself for Division of Race and Equity updates quickly. I just wanted to let you all know, I may have sent this out in an email, but I'm not 100% sure. As an FYI, Joy Marsh, who was the director of the Division of Race and Equity, has left the city to move on to another role. That doesn't like technically immediately impact the role of the TEC in any way. And also, as the TEC is housed within our division, and as she was obviously as my supervisor, the point person who was helping kind of direct some of the things where I needed support on how to staff an appointed board, feels useful for you all to know that staffing in the division is particularly up in the air right now. I will keep you all posted on kind of like where things are moving forward with hiring for open roles. And there is a potential that the Division of Race and Equity could turn into a full department with more authority, which could mean that if you recommended we did things, we would actually have more authority to make some of those things happen, essentially. So I will keep you posted on where all of that is going, but just wanted to give a heads up as we are really low on staffing in our office. And also kind of just included in that is a like apology in advance for anything I'm dropping, because it's a month before the summit and there's 2 of us in the office, so I know I'm dropping things. And with that, I will pass it to Kenzie to talk about summit stuff a little bit.
So summit updates. I don't actually know what we're talking about in terms of this, but did we want to have Billy and Hunter talk about what you're doing at the summit? TEC?
Yeah, sure. Is Billy here?
This is Billy. Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, yeah. Billy, do you mind explaining the workshop right now? I want to make sure, I want to let you start, and then I can add any additional comments later. I'll defer to you.
Absolutely. We are presenting a workshop right now on civic engagement. Objectively pretty boring topic, but hopefully the 2 of us can jazz it up a bit. It's going to be virtual. And it is still in motion, but basically trying to keep it to an hour presentation. It's supposed to be a resource for folks who want to get more involved politically, but also we're going to talk briefly about other ways to support your community. That's a little bit less scary, I guess, than like the political aspect of it. But it's kind of it can be a scary subject to broach, I think. So we're just trying to break down barriers of entry, I guess, and give people the resources that they need. And correct me if I'm wrong, Track, but hopefully there will be city council representation at this presentation to kind of handle some Q&As that me and Hunter might not know the answer to.
This is Track, hopefully. Oh, Malaysia, jump in.
I spoke with council member and it should work. Don't want to give any guarantees, but I'm making things shake, so we'll see.
That is awesome. Thank you.
And this is Hunter. I can add to that. So I think one thing I just want to make sure you're all finished here. So for our presentation, for the workshop, I do want to make sure to just really encourage people, when they come into it, if they're wanting to know more about the TEC, what we're doing. And then, also, I think so far we've really, sometimes people will know about, some people will go into one setting and people will have no idea what the TEC is. And then you go into another setting and people are familiar with our work. So we want to make sure that people leave feeling some excitement about it. It maybe, yes, it could seem a little boring, but I know that we're going to figure out a way to make it really exciting, even though we only have, an hour. But I'm excited that we can make it interesting. Anything else you want to add, Track or Billy?
I would just say I'm curious if there's anything that anyone here wants to see as a part of this presentation that Billy and Hunter haven't already named, either like things folks have questions about that would be good for them to cover, ways to approach particular topics, or anything else.
Yeah, and I'm all eyes, so let me know what you're thinking.
And Track, it's on the SharePoint, correct? Like the draft that we have, like, can people see that? Can all of the TEC access that?
Yes, everyone on the TEC should be able to access that. So if you want to take a look at the draft that folks are working on so far, you're welcome to.
I would say even if anybody wants to like drop a note in there or comment or something so that me and Hunter can see it, that's totally fine as well. Like, I would welcome that, honestly.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I want to make sure that you all feel comfortable adding some feedback too, and then that will also help us. The more that we get done ahead of time, then the nice thing is we'll be able to make sure we send that into the interpreters that we're going to be having for our workshop, just so that that it's clear for them as well. So since they'll be interpreting for us, but definitely make sure to add some points. If you have like specific bulleted points or something that you really want to make sure that really get included. We're trying to be as succinct as possible since we do only have an hour. And so we want to make sure that whatever points that you have that you want to make sure are addressed are included.
If no one else has anything on that immediately, the other two summit pieces, one was a great suggestion from Malaysia. Thank you. That hopefully more council members would take action on your recommendations if they recognized that it was coming from asks from folks in their ward, that they do have a number of trans constituents. Honestly, particularly because this is an election year for folks who are running for re-election, that's probably particularly impactful. We don't have any sort of demographic data that captures that right now, but if we wanted to try to get a little bit immediately on the post-summit survey that we send out to attendees to get some feedback on how the summit was, we could totally ask folks wards. When we had the summit in person, we got a ton of responses because we just collected it from people at the door as they left. Virtually, we do not get very many responses, so it may be useful and it may really not get us anywhere, but it is worth a try. And so wanted to propose that to you all. And if you want, I can get that added to the summit feedback survey. I'm seeing some nods and thumbs up and no no's.
Track. Just one thing that I just thought about. I see a lot of people that like don't know which ward they live in. So I'm wondering if you can include the survey of like the link or like just simple directions of like, here's how to find it so they know. Because I feel like if they don't, they're just gonna skip the question.
Yes, totally. I will link the city's like ward finder website in there. Thank you for that. Totally. Sweet. And then the other summit question I had for you all, and Billy, I owe you an email on this exact topic, is I know we discussed at the beginning of summit planning that the TEC could table at the resource fair, either virtually in person, if you all wanted, to just kind of give folks more of a heads up about what it is and how to get involved. And Billy did the work of signing you all up originally, but we never actually moved forward on like, do folks have the capacity to table? What materials do you want at your table? And since we do actually need to figure that out now, wanted to throw that out to get a sense of in-person tabling would be Sunday night, October 3rd, and looks exactly what you think of in-person tabling looking like. Virtual tabling would be Monday afternoon, October 4th, and is essentially being available at a device in case someone in our like virtual reality career and resource fair platform either IMs you or wants to call you with questions, but is less of a like it's not even sitting in an open Zoom room. You don't have to like sit in a call that people could pop into. You just have to be able to answer things if they get sent your way. So with that kind of context on timing and format, and the TEC could do either or both, we're giving people the option to table the way they feel most comfortable. I'm curious if anyone has opinions on whether the TEC tables, knows they have capacity at those times themselves to table, has thoughts on what materials they'd want out, etc.
This is Billy. I would be open to virtually tabling on Monday, but I believe that me and Hunta also have our presentation on Monday. So I guess maybe not for that specific hour, but otherwise available for Monday.
And this is Hunta. Do you mind, Track? Could you email me the schedule too for the availability on October 3rd? I want to make sure I'm just looking through that too, and then I can look through it.
This is May. Depending on how long you want me to volunteer, I can take some time on October the 4th.
I know that Billy and Hunter's presentation, scrolling, as of right now is 3 to 4 on Monday the 4th. So if it was possible for May to do 3 to 4 and Billy to do 4 to 5, you would have the 2-hour time slot covered, if that could work for both of you.
This is May. It's fine.
This is Billy seconded.
And this is Melissa, the interpreter. You could just hold on one moment for the interpreters to switch. That'd be great. Thank you. Hunta's just looking to pin the
other interpreter. I'm just gonna speak to try to help Hunta find me. And I'm wondering. Okay, we're good. Thank you.
Sweet, totally. Is anyone else interested in tabling? If not, we have got it covered with Billy and May, so that's perfect. I will send you both the logistical information and just add your emails to the, wow, sorry, train of thought. The person from Minneapolis Employment and Training who's setting up our virtual reality platform is going to be reaching out to everyone who's doing virtual tabling to kind of like let them know how the platform works and give them an opportunity to set up their booth, because you'll be able to just like create your little virtual reality booth. So I will put your emails on the thing that she is sending out. And if anyone else is interested in helping put content into that virtual reality booth, even if you can't table day of, just let us know so we can include you in that as well. But that sounds perfect. Does anyone have any suggestions on stuff they want to make sure is at the table, the virtual table, before we move on from this?
This is Billy Track. Do you want me to email? I forget the name already.
Amy, who reached out to you. I will take a look at that and reply and figure out what's going on. I just wanted to wait until we all talked in the meeting tonight before answering that thread, but you don't need to follow up until I reply to that.
Okay, because I forget what other thing that I was supposed to include in that, like a description. Is there like a general TEC description that I can throw in there?
Yes, there is. There is a general TEC description on this website that you do not need to use all of, but are welcome to use. That is the TEC's LIMS website, which I can also put in the minutes.
Perfect, thank you.
Sweet. In that case, we're going to move into membership updates. And Emma, I'm going to pass it over to you first.
Yeah, thanks everybody. So this is Emma, and I have an announcement that I will be leaving the TEC, which is very sad. I've been with the TEC since October of 2019, I believe, and it's been kind of a crazy, wild ride, I'm sure, as it has been for everyone over the last year and a half. But I'm actually going to be moving to Los Angeles. And so I will no longer be able to be an official member of the TEC, but I really do hope to continue to like volunteer and also to get involved, obviously, in movement work out there. I know that, yeah, I was really just trying to secure employment, and with my new job being fully remote, it like really frees me up to kind of relocate and hopefully at least avoid winter for the foreseeable future. But I was just out there this weekend and did secure housing, so it's definitely happening, and it will be we'll be moving out at the end of this month, actually. So it's happening quickly, but it's also been in the works for quite some time. And I just wanted to thank all of you members present and past that aren't here for like this incredible opportunity to be able to grow and show up in this way and to do this work with such a passionate and amazing group of people. And it's just been a real honor and a real high point over the last few years for me. So I appreciate you all, and I will be watching from afar and hopefully still staying in contact with as many of you as I possibly can. So that's all I got.
We're gonna miss you, Emma. Thank you. Thank you for letting us know and for all the work you've done on the TEC so far and helping kind of carry it forward as we had a bunch of turnover in membership, particularly at the beginning of this year. Hunter, I am also going to pass it to you because I know you. Oh, no. Okay, never mind. Up to you. I don't know if you had something you needed to say now. Okay.
This is Hunter. No, I'll pass. Thanks.
Great. Sorry. Miscommunication on my part. I did.
Praise. I do want to say, since I guess I have the floor for a second, Emma, congratulations. So keep in touch, and hope everything works out really well in LA. Congratulations, and it was great working with you, and good luck on the journey, on your journeys.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. We are going to miss you. And also wanted to give an update that unfortunately Casey couldn't give because we didn't meet last month. But Z recently left Minneapolis Public Schools to start a grad school program, and so had to step down from the MPS seat. And we are going to have a new appointee from MPS who will hopefully be able to join as soon as next month, who will introduce themselves to you all when they are able to join, but just wanted to give you that update as well, I guess, through me, since it didn't manage to happen in an actual meeting. And also to update that sadly with Emma stepping down, and then with 1 or 2 seats that were already open, there are some vacancies on the TEC right now, and applications open, which feels like a very like weirdly logistical thing to say right after being like, Emma, we'll miss you. But like, it's all, yeah. All of the things fell under membership updates on the agenda and are next to each other, which is partially my own fault. But I will send out to you all the link to the application and would really encourage you to spread it to anyone you know who you want to see apply to the TEC. There's been times in the past where we've gotten a ton of applications and times where we haven't gotten as many, and would love to have like the best group of applicants possible, so that the folks selecting applicants can then choose the best possible TEC members. There are a couple community member positions that are technically halfway through their 2-year term that people would be stepping in to fill the 2nd year of. And then all of the like staff role positions, city, county, etc., do technically end at the end of this year. I'm getting that right. And so those are open for you all to reapply if you're interested. And also for you to spread the word about, particularly if you're not interested, and or if anyone is leaving their roles and moving to other roles, like Casey did from MPS, and therefore can't continue serving in that capacity. So please help spread the word about those. That is how we get the best folks.
And
I think since Emma is leaving, she gets to find her own replacement, right? That's how that works.
No, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Well, you can maybe guilt her about it a little bit.
Yeah, I'll definitely put the word out there.
I love this. I love this strategy. Yes, please do.
Track. This is Taryn. I have a question. When it comes to having the positions open or vacancies, does the person have to live within Minneapolis or surrounding? Would that work?
Totally. There is a Minneapolis residency requirement, but it can be waived. And so if the strongest applicants, or particularly like applicants who bring experience that nobody else brings, are from outside of Minneapolis, historically the council members and or mayor who are selecting them have sometimes waived that. So definitely it feels important to give people that context, but definitely if you think they'd be great, still encourage them to apply. Because it's not a hard no.
Okay, thank you.
Sweet. And I have been sending those out in the Race Equity newsletter and the TEC newsletter, and put it on our office's Facebook page, but would really encourage you to also like throw it in Facebook groups, send it out through other avenues you're in. Unless we get a ton of applicants real soon, we will probably extend the deadline 1 month, so that we can advertise it at the summit, which will help reach many more people, obviously. But if anyone has thoughts on other ways they'd want to see us advertising it as an office as well, I am always open to your suggestions. Would love to hear them. Hunter, go for it.
I'm thinking maybe it's not too late to, advertise through, like we can include it in our presentation. We can tell them, there are available positions, please apply. And, just during the summit in general, I think there's a lot of opportunities for us to put it out there, like you kind of said, and say, we're continuing to search, and then also tell people that they can make recommendations if they have people in mind.
Great. Yes, please add that to your presentation. That sounds awesome.
You got it.
Sweet. Does anyone else have any questions or suggestions on that?
This is Hunter. I have a question. For you, Track. So I know that Kenzie and I will be presenting on, I think it's the 22nd. But I'm wondering if we could announce applications at that presentation as well. Or does that feel like it might be something we should keep separate? What do you think?
It is technically a presentation directly to City Council and not really to the public. So I mostly don't know how much it'll get you to do that. Like I don't know how many people from the public would be watching it, and it wouldn't make sense as a thing to announce to council necessarily. So for that reason, my impulse is no.
Okay, sounds good.
Awesome. Well, that was all we had before our presentations. Our first presenter appears to be running late. I haven't heard from her, but our second presenter will be able to jump on by 6:10. She's gonna rush to join a little. Oh, oop, our first presenter just lost the link. Hang on, I'm gonna stop talking and email her the link, and she'll be here in a minute or two, and then we'll get started. Grab a drink of water, do what you need to do.
Hey, Track, this is Amelia here.
Hello, perfect. We had just finished the part before you. So Hunter, I will pass it over to you now to introduce Amelia, our first presenter.
Great, just one second. I'm just making sure to find my interpreter here. We switched interpreters, and so I just need to find them real quick. 1 second here. Okay. Okay, great. Let me just make sure I'm all set here. Just 1 second. Okay, so I want to go ahead and introduce Amelia, who is our next speaker. Amelia, I'm so happy you're here. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited to hear from you tonight. And thank you for joining our meeting with the TEC. I appreciate it. We'll hand it off to you.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you for having me. My name's Amelia Kruver. Again, I'm the budget director for the city of Minneapolis. I use she, her pronouns. And this is the first time I've been invited to this committee, so I'm hoping to give you guys an overview of the budget process and highlight specifically places where folks can get involved, and then answer any questions that this group has. So I guess I'll just start with the annual budget cycle. So at the city of Minneapolis, we do an annual budget. It is approved by council sometime in December to start January in the following month. So we start the budget process in usually March or April, where we work with departments to set what we call the current service level budget. And so the current service level budget is really our starting place, where we take all of the approved programs and the FTEs from the year before and push them forward into the next year. So in Minneapolis, rather than hold steady personnel costs, we increase them each year depending on the known cost increases. So things like cost of living adjustments across the board, contract, like any contract where we know that there's going to be an increase in compensation, we include that in the budget to make sure that we include steady funding for all approved FTEs. The other big part of the base budget is what we call allocation models, and that's just sort of charges to departments to pay for things like fleet, which is a sort of strange term for just the cars and equipment that departments use, for rent that departments pay, for health insurance and medical insurance, and for, I'm missing one, IT, so technology. And then the last piece of our budget is non-personnel. So that pays for things like materials, used to be a lot of travel and training, not so much in the last couple of years, and then contracts. and those we hold steady and don't inflate year to year. So we do that work. We work with departments to make sure that we're understanding their budgets. We have the right roster of FTEs, and ultimately getting to a really accurate cost for expenditures. So we price out sort of what we call the base budget first. And then we look at our revenues, and we do a deep dive into what's the outlook for revenues next year, and then we do a 5-year outlook as well. So that has been much more of a high profile endeavor in the last 2 years, where we've had to really try and create a crystal ball to figure out how the economy will react to the pandemic, to figure out how that translates to our local business environment, because we do in the city of Minneapolis count on sales tax revenue. A lot of cities in Minnesota aren't as dependent. They have mostly property taxes, which is a very steady flow of revenue. Because we are such a hub of business and arts and culture and sporting events, we rely a lot on sales tax revenue. So figuring out how to forecast that has been a big part of our job in the last couple of years. So we start off saying, what are our expenditures? What are our revenues? And what does that look like? Is there a gap between spending and revenues? Are we expected to bring in more money than our expenditures? And that's really our starting point for the budget. Then we look to departments to ask for what we call change item requests. And that's just any changes in their budget beyond what the base is. And so this is where we start outreach to departments who think through their priorities. This year it's been focused a lot on, of the cuts that had to be made in 2021, what's the most important thing to bring back into their budgets? And just any other priorities that the departments are working on. They put forward proposals. Those all go to the mayor, and the mayor uses information about our base budget and then the change item requests from department to make his budget recommendation. And so by city charter, that needs to be out by August 13th every year. So that's sort of the big chunk of our work that we've just really wrapped up in the budget office, is completing that mayor's budget. And so I guess I'll sort of pause there and talk a little bit about that department activities that departments are doing for this portion. I think for the mayor's budget, for any kind of new proposal or modified proposal or increase to a current program, those usually come through the departments that implement them. And so we rely on department heads to, really know the work that they're doing, work with their subject matter experts to bring forward proposals that address their priorities, move the needle on their goals, as well as align with the mayor's priorities. And so I think that's really the first place where folks can have an impact, or where a lot of the ideas that are discussed in the budget are formulated, is through departments in that time period from like April, usually to the end of May. In that process, we ask departments, I should say, in 2019, at the very end of 2019, we started working on adding a racial equity analysis portion to those proposals that we get from departments. So this will now be year 2, where departments are getting asked questions about what communities are being most impacted by this change item. What data do you have that tells you how existing racial disparities will be impacted by this change? And so we're starting to sort of build a routine and practice around asking those questions. So departments are being asked to identify how the proposed change will impact racial equity. And this is work that I said departments are getting good at, but we are continuing to really work on training departments because we found responses and abilities to answer that question to be kind of uneven. Some departments have analyst teams and some departments have 5 people. So that's something we're working at the city to sort of help build capacity around that. So that gets us to the mayor's budget. Mayor releases his budget but by August 15th, and then we really transition to the council phase. So starting on Monday, the budget committee will get started back up at council. On Monday, I will be giving an overview of what's included in the mayor's budget, really talking about the high level changes in the property tax, forecasted revenues, and this year talking a little bit about the use of the dollars from the American Rescue Plan Act. So that'll start with a budget overview. Then starting the next week, we'll hear from each department head, usually like mostly for the month of October. Every week, sometimes twice a week, the budget committee will meet and hear from department heads to talk about their base budget, how they're currently deploying their resources, and what change items they have included in the mayor's budget. And so their departments will talk about their goals, their priorities, and then how these new programs or sometimes backfilling for cuts that happened last year will fit into that vision for their department. And so then I should say sort of during that process, the levy, the maximum levy is decided. This is a next step in the budget process that goes to the Board of Estimate and Taxation, where they've heard from the mayor what the overall levy should look like, and then they will have a public hearing. I believe it's on the 23rd, but I'll get you the exact date. Just hearing about the overall level of how much we should increase the levy by. And so the mayor has proposed a 5.45% increase in the levy this year, and they will vote on that max levy. And typically it's either up or down what the mayor has proposed. So once BET votes on the max levy, then we essentially know exactly what our resources are for 2022. Council knows exactly how much spending we have in the general fund, and they can deliberate the mayor's budget and what amendments they would like to bring. So they're hearing from departments, like I said, throughout the end of September and most of October. At the end of November, we start public hearings on the city budget. And so council will usually host about 3 public hearings on the budget to hear from folks about the mayor's proposed budget. And then at the very beginning of December, we start what's called the markup process. And so that is where council members bring amendments to the mayor's budget. So they may not support one of his change items. They may want to move money from one area to another. They may want to propose new programs and use money by eliminating old programs to fund it. Things like that. This is really the chance for council to apply their values to the mayor's budget, make any amendments that they see necessary and can get the votes for. And then they ultimately pass the budget at usually the middle of December. And then that's usually the last or second to last council meeting of the year. And then we get to work implementing the mayor's budget. And then we start all over again in March. So I guess I'll pause there to see if there's any questions. And then I can move on to talk a little bit about what we've done so far with the American Rescue Plan Act dollars and a little bit about what our plans are for sort of phase 2. But I'll pause to take any questions about sort of the regular budget process.
This is I do have a question. Are you hearing me okay? It sounds like there's some feedback. Can you hear? Okay. All right, go right ahead. Just one second here. So I have 2 questions specifically. The first part of the budget process, when that is open for public, I think you said it was November. I want to say, is that right? That that's when it's open for public discussion. I kind of want just to clarify about the date. And then my second question is, with COVID happening, have you noticed more grander effects on the budget, and if that's impacting, even going into this year, is that meaning that we're going to have more budget cuts? And if so, are you already knowing kind of where some of those cuts are going to happen? Do you know anything in depth about that?
Yes, so this is Amelia Kruber, and those are great questions. So there will be 3 public hearings, 1 in late November and then 2 in December. And just so I don't mess up the date, let me just send an email around so that you guys can have those public hearing dates. But to your second question about the impact of the pandemic, we have seen pretty severe impacts on our revenue related to the pandemic. And in Minneapolis in particular, we have lowered sales taxes because many of the businesses that generate, so our sales tax specifically is on liquor, entertainment, hotel taxes, and then there's an additional tax on a district that's just downtown. And so you can imagine with people not going to work downtown, with events at US Bank Stadium and the Twins Stadium and all the other big venues downtown being essentially closed for a year and a half, that's had a huge impact, and our sales taxes have gone down by about 50% and stayed that way for 20 into 21. We are expecting them to grow by a significant amount into 22, but not to reach pre-pandemic levels. So that's had a big impact on our budget. The other thing is just regular business licenses also have taken a hit, and it's difficult in Minneapolis to disentangle the impacts of the pandemic and then the additional problems that small businesses have had after the unrest of last summer, where some have struggled to get some of the aid that was due to them. They've struggled to reopen and navigate the hurdles that are in place in any kind of administrative process. So Minneapolis has had kind of a double whammy in that way. But when we were finalizing the 21 budget at the very end of 2020, and we didn't really know who the president was going to be, things look different. Now that we have passed the American Rescue Plan Act, that has dramatically changed our outlook for our budget. So one of the 4 priorities, or one of the 4 objectives of the legislation is to fund general government services as revenue replacement. And so in Minneapolis, we are going to do that so that we can avoid another year of cuts, because we cut about $36 million in 21 for the current year's budget to deal with that drop in revenue. And we would essentially be looking at doing the same thing again if it weren't for the American Rescue Plan Act. So the American Rescue Plan Act is a big deal for Minneapolis. And I'll talk a little bit about sort of what has happened. On July 2nd, the City Council passed the first round of appropriations for the American Rescue Plan Act, and that included $102 million of our allocation. Our total allocation is $271 million. So with the remaining dollars, the work that we've had to do is figure out how much is the appropriate amount of ARP dollars to use to replace revenues. And the reason that's really tricky is because a lot of the cuts that were made to our ongoing spending, which is usually supporting staff, right? Costs that we know will be there year in, year out. Using one-time dollars to support an ongoing cost is generally not a good idea. And so in this situation, we really tried to look at a 5-year outlook for revenues so that we could think about where we expect to be when things return to whatever new normal we have in the city, and just fill in those gaps with American Rescue Plan dollars and not overshoot it by adding a bunch more in spending and creating a cliff for us in 2025. So we've done a lot of work looking at not just next year's revenue, but the 5-year revenue outlook. And so the mayor's budget this year includes $119 million of revenue replacement using ARP dollars. And that's over 3 years, so that we can have sort of a slow lead up to transitioning on to the general fund levy again in 2025 when those one-time resources go away. So that's a very good transition to ARP, but I'll stop to see if there's any other questions about what I just said.
This is Hunter. Thank you for that.
And if you could just hold one moment for Hunter, we're switching interpreters right now, so we'll just wait for Hunter to find the new interpreter. And you're good to go. Thank you so much.
Great.
This is track. I actually have one question based on kind of the conversation that caused the TEC to bring you here in the first place. I know you talked a little bit because the TEC was like, okay, how do we, like TEC members have advocated at public hearings in November in the past, have kind of gotten into the budget cycle in that part of the year and want to figure out how to actually influence it earlier. And so the piece you spelled out around departments is really clear in terms of like, that's when things start getting built. But I'm curious if you have any perspective on like, how can appointed boards get into those conversations between departments and the budget office earlier in the year, since that's not, that appointed boards are not actually directly inserted in this process at any point in the year. So what's the best way to become a part of the department conversations?
Yeah, this is Amelia speaking, and I think that's a good question, and maybe goes to a bit more of a sort of how does the city structure work, which I'm probably not going to be able to answer today, but I think the more concrete that you can be about what kinds of changes you want to advocate for can help you narrow in on which departments you need to be talking to. So if you're thinking about how we deal with accessibility, with issues with the sidewalk, and right of way, things like that, that's going to lead you to talking to Public Works and sort of sending emails and talking to those folks about what it is they're proposing to the mayor. Because I know department heads will often have stakeholder groups that they are listening to and hearing from as they craft their proposals. So I think I would think about what the types of changes are that you're thinking about, and think about the department that might live with, and starting with the sort of content and the subject matter experts is always a great way to start to understand, what is the lever here that we're looking to pull, because sometimes if you're talking about an issue that is like multi-jurisdiction, crosses multiple departments, sometimes that's a first step. You need to talk to the folks that are like working on that to understand, we may do this, but actually the regulation we're following is something that this place does. You know what I'm saying? So I think reaching out to departments is a great way to get involved earlier on in the process.
Malaysia, go for it.
This is Malaysia. Hi, Amelia. I just had a question. So that sounds more of like logistics wise of how to like get involved in the conversation. Do you have like a timeline of like when, like which month, or just because it usually happens towards like the end of the year of those conversations?
Yep, this is Amelia, and I think if your aim is to be a part or to influence what a department is asking for in the mayor's budget, then getting involved earlier in the year, like in the February, March, April timeframe, is the best part. After the mayor's budget is public, then the sort of next phase is really focused on council members. And so that's where public testimony at city council meetings and working and advocating with council members directly is the route to go, and that's that November, December timeframe. All right. I can talk a little bit about ARP. So I just talked about $102 million that was appropriated in phase 1 with the mayor and city council. And the mayor's budget recommends about $119 million of revenue replacement. So that leaves $50 million of our ARP total allocation. And so we will follow the same process we did with phase 1, where the mayor will recommend how to use that 50 million, and then council will make amendments and then approve the final allocation for those $50 million. And the mayor's the mayor's team in working with the NCR has put out a survey to ask about priorities when formulating round 2. And so I can put that in the chat or email it to you guys, but I would encourage you all to take that survey. And that's going to be one step and one point of reference for the mayor when he puts together his initial recommendations. I know there will be, there's an intention to do more outreach in this round, but no hard and fast plans yet. We are also working on a form that folks can fill out to submit project ideas for round 2. And that should be up either late this week, which I guess just leaves tomorrow. These short weeks throw me off, or early next week. And so those are sort of the 2 main methods for collecting public feedback in the mayor's phase. We expect the mayor will have recommendations out probably the end of October, and then we'll go similar to the regular budget process to the council, who will make amendments, likely hold some public hearings, and then approve the final allocation, probably around the same timeline as the overall budget. So that's what I know, and I'm happy to stick around for any questions.
This is tracked. Does anyone else have any questions for Amelia? And Amelia, yeah, if you send me those links you mentioned, anything you were going to send out, I can include those in the minutes, which goes both up online and to the TEC. So that'll be perfect. And seriously, there are no silly questions. I know the budget can be a complex process, so please ask anything you're wondering.
Well, this is Amelia. You guys know where I work, so if there are more questions, you should feel free to email me. I'm happy to respond. We have a team of analysts that have specific budget areas too, and they, I will loop them in as needed if you guys have specific questions.
This is Hunter. That's beautiful. Thank you.
This track. Thank you so much, Amelia. I will pass your email on to anyone who needs it for sure. And thank you for joining us this evening.
Yeah, perfect. This is Amelia. Thank you guys so much. Let me know how I can help in the future.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this is Hunter. I just want to make sure the interpreter could find her mute button. So for the next presentation, I know we talked a lot about budgeting, and I just want to say again, any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to Amelia. That was a lot, and it's a really interesting process, so thank you again. So back to this final presentation, I want to introduce Miss Riva Two-Spirit, Riva DeNova, fondly known with her community as Miss Riva Two-Spirit Elder. So take it away. Thank you for coming. We're so happy you're here. Can't wait to hear from you.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Great. Well, good evening, Tech. I'm Riva DeNova, Miss Riva to my community. I'm here to kind of see how the Two-Spirit trans Native community can work together with tech, and how we can kind of bring some policy issues and things to the city and see how we can work together. So I want to start out by letting everyone know that I've had a couple small focus groups the past few weeks to see kind of where we're at as a community, where we're standing, and how we can work with the city and see what some policies is something that we would like to see. And one of the things that was talked about and really recommended was trying to get a Two-Spirit liaison onto the city council or the tech team or some sort of communication team. We think that would be awesome. And let me look at my note here real quick. And also, kind of some updated cultural training within Hennepin County. There's a lot of programs and stuff that are kind of have outdated training. And since the pandemic and things, there's a lot of things that have kind of changed, and the way ceremonies are conducted and home visits and things. So yeah, it's just a big ball of things that we just kind of want to discuss. Is there any questions at this point? I'm kind of want to do like a Q&A. I don't really have a presentation.
This is Hunter.
Hi.
Hello. So I just have a quick question for you. So can you tell me a little bit more about the training that you're thinking about? Are you thinking about specifically related to this Two-Spirit community? And correct me if I'm, saying anything wrong, please. Do you think that it's about folks and how they interact with people that are Two-Spirited, or can you just tell me a little bit more about that training? Or, yeah, what are you thinking?
Sure, thank you, Hunter. That's a great question. Some of the trainings that I've been involved with Hennepin County, we did this great training with the ICWA department about being Two-Spirited, our roles in the community, from coming from a place of honor and brought to a place of shame due to colonization, and then now finding our way back into the circle, coming back into that place of honor. So that's kind of what we're looking at, Hunter, kind of opening eyes again, letting them know that the roles of the Two-Spirit trans person in our Native communities, our roles are much more than what the general GBLT community is today. Does that make sense to you? Awesome. Yay.
Yeah, this is Hunter. Thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions? Please feel free.
This is Billy. And forgive me also if I say anything wrong or get anything incorrect. In terms of this training, how would you, under what, I guess, umbrella would you like this training to be included? Because you're saying that Two-Spirit is kind of separate from LGBT issues, or it's got more of a cultural undertone. So would you like those to be a separate, like if we have an LGBTQ or a queer training or inclusion practice, would it be inconsiderate to include Two-Spirit in such a training?
That's a great question, Belly. Thank you. I think that's a start to start including Two-Spirit, the population Two-Spirit queer people, because our roles are a little different. The way we conduct our socials and things are a little different. And I think getting to interact with the general GBLT community at wide would be great for all of us to learn and interact with each other and let us know how to work appropriately with one another and know what's culturally appropriate, how to do things the proper way, traditional ways that we've done, that we're kind of taking those roles back on. Like one small track, if you don't mind me sharing, you know, there was a little tiny piece like last year when Track invited me to do the opening blessing and land acknowledgement for the summit. I let Track know while in our community, when Track asked me that question, that they should present me with a gift, you know, just a small gift. You know, it doesn't have to be anything enormous or anything. So that's one of our little cultural things that we've kind of readopted and kind of getting things back into place. Just little small cultural things like that to kind of refirm ourselves back into our place in the circle and be open to our other GBLT community members and share with them, you know, our way as we've learned from them. So kind of like under a cultural competence kind of umbrella, I guess. Thank you, Track. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, you're good. This is Track. I actually have a kind of related question, because I know that most of the trainings that are like cultural competency in some way at the city are coordinated by neighborhood and community relations, which is also the department that has, I'm trying to remember what they're actually called. I want to say community liaisons. Like I know they have a Southeast Asian community liaison, and someone, I believe her title is American Indian Community Liaison, is how the department frames it. And I'm curious, like when you all were talking about having a Two-Spirit liaison, if you were thinking about something similar to that role kind of within that department, or something more policy focused, like on the TEC, if you had a sense of like, and this may be too specific of a question, but like what you would want that liaison doing, and therefore like where within any of this work it would be most useful for them to be.
Right now, probably, this is Riva, sorry. Kind of more like a community liaison at this point, you know, just to get our foot in the door, find out where we fit, where we can share a lot, where we can educate a lot, where we're able to learn from each other. So that's kind of like what we want to do, kind of get in there and hopefully just spread to TEC, to other branches of Hennepin County. You know, just get our foot in the door and let them know, you know, there's more than just Native American people here. There's Two-Spirit people here. There's a whole gambit of natives. So that's kind of what there's a small group of us that kind of have a small vision of doing.
This is Track. Awesome. Thanks. Does anyone have any other immediate questions on what's been shared so far?
Also, this is Riva again. And my community was hoping that we could have like a little community feast or a little gathering with the tech community, our tech members, or just a small feast, you know, just to kind of introduce ourselves to who we are to your community. Community, I just made two words, community and committee.
This is Track. That's lovely, and I'm happy to take on some of the logistics of like coordinating anything like that if folks would want to do that, and help with scheduling or whatever would be useful.
Hi again, this is Riva. And if there's any more questions that I can answer about the Two-Spirit community in a general form, or questions, is there anything else that you'd like to know? I can provide my contact information. Well, Track has my contact information. You're more than welcome to reach out to me there. If I can connect you to other members of my community, please ask. You know, I have a lot of connections. But we're just happy to be invited, you know, to the table, get a seat at the table and work with the community and with the Hennepin County.
Totally. This is Track. I'm actually curious, Taryn, not to totally put you on the spot, but as
I would Track. This is the interpreter. Would you mind holding on one moment while we switch interpreters before you answer that question? And this is Hunta. I'm still looking for Melissa.
And this is Melissa. I'll just start to talk to see if that helps with bringing up the interpreter's screen. Okay, we are good to go. Thank you.
Great. All good. Yeah, knowing that there is definitely city training that's necessary, and also that more of the like service provision happens out of Hennepin County and not out of the city. Taryn, I don't want to put you on the spot, so if you don't know the answer to this, obviously just say, but as our kind of county representative, I'm curious if you have any sense of like where some of the training we were talking about could be incorporated within the like more service provision stuff that happens at the county and not the city.
This is Taryn. So your question is regarding where could these trainings be beneficial? Is that what you are asking?
Be beneficial, or like, are there already trainings going on that this is content we could add them to? Like, just like if you have a vision of what already exists, or who would be the people at the county to get some of this feedback to, since it needs to get beyond just this virtual room of people.
Sure. This is Taryn. I could do some contacting of DE&I, or diversity, equity, inclusion, but also there's quite a few areas where we're in need of more training, or we can contact people. So if there is specific trainings I don't know of exactly, we could I could come up with more of a list when I'm not tired. But yes, I can email a list, or if you ask, could you send me an email to remind me?
Yes, totally.
Thank you.
And this is Track. I guess my follow-up question to that, Riva, is like within the city, which is generally more policy or funding and grant making and less service provision than the county, do you have any sense of like, I guess, like departments you would particularly want to see getting this training or something like that, so that we can try to pursue it internally in the relevant places?
Hi, this is Riva. Some of the departments that we've done training for with Hennepin County were the social workers, the CI, child protection workers, some of the new police staff, probation staff. We did it in conjunction with the ICWA unit. So, and I think Elaine Sullivan was the contact there with the counties. So there's a name that that could probably help Taryn out. with some of the contacts there.
This is Taryn. Yes, Child Protection and ICWA, the Indian Child Welfare Unit, is they're really in need of these trainings too. So I'm glad that they have been offered. I know that there's a lot of public facing areas in Health and Human Services that could really benefit from some trainings. And I could reach out to Elaine Sullivan and ask about the training and how it all was hooked up. Otherwise, Riva, if you, it sounds like you have the ability to connect with Track, we could all connect for Hennepin, Minneapolis, and with yourself if you're comfortable with that.
Sure.
Okay. So Track, when you, this is Taryn, when you send the email, will you also have Riva attached to it if you have not already sent it?
I may have just already sent it, but I will send another one that connects both of your contact info. I was afraid it would not happen if it did not happen right now.
I fully understand. Thank you.
And this is Riva again, and kind of I'm kind of wanting to, my group meeting with the TEC group, kind of get to, that's where I was kind of thinking we'd get together socially, and that's kind of our way, another part of our way. Those when we meet with somebody, we have a feast and get together over food and discuss things and plan things. And we just kind of wanted to meet with the Trans Equity Committee and see, you know, how we can work together and how things that I'm not thinking of right now that others may be thinking of that could somehow be policy one day.
That sounds wonderful. And I think, yeah, I can follow up with you about times that might work for that. And we can try to coordinate getting folks together.
This is Hunta, and I wholeheartedly agree. Yes.
This is Track. Do folks have any other questions?
This is Hunta again. I just think this is really great. And I also want to say too, just wanted to add, I think this would be great, a resource I want to make sure to add to our presentation too. So this is good stuff.
This is Ms. Rivas, so I would like to say thank you to the TEC committee for having me this evening, and Track has all my contact information. Please reach out if there's anything that you'd like to ask. I'm more than willing to help and be connected in any way possible. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And this is Track. This was the end of our agenda for tonight. So if someone wants to make a motion to adjourn, unless anyone has anything else that we're missing.
I motion to adjourn. This is Hunta.
I second.
Everybody seconded it. Amazing. Thank you, Emma. Goodbye again to
Thank you,
Emma.
everybody.
Thank you all so much.
Yeah.
Bye,
So
Emma.
much.
Thank you, Emma. Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Good
Thanks,
luck.
Emma.
Thank you.
So the interpreters were just clarifying. We're just clarifying a sign, and so I did match them because.